Hi, I'm McNeilly, and I'm here to teach my sister the derivative rules. The first rule we'll be going over is the constant rule. And the constant rule states that the derivative of an integer equals a constant. Equals a constant, which means it will equal 0. Which means that if y equals 6, then the derivative of y will equal 0. And if y equals 10, then the derivative of y will equal 0. So any real number derivative will equal 0. Alright, next we'll be doing the power rule. And this states that the derivative of a variable with an exponent will equal the exponent times the variable, and then you take 1 away from the original exponent. So it'll look like this. For example, the derivative if y equals x squared, the derivative of y becomes 2x, which is the 2 times the x, and then you take 1 away from the 2, so that just makes it 1, but then you don't need that for an exponent. Another thing is if y equals x cubed, then the derivative of y will equal 3x. Then you take 1 away from the exponent, so it will be squared. And this also works with constants, such as if y equals 2x squared, then the derivative of y equals 4x. And if y equals 2x cubed, then y prime will equal 6x squared.
Okay.
Alright, so now that we got those two done, let's go ahead and I'll put some problems up and you give me the answer to them. Alright, so what's the answer to the first one?
I know, baby!
Yes.
Y prime equals 0.
Yes, that's right. What about the second?
Y prime equals 0. Y prime equals 9x squared. Y prime equals 8x.
Alright, what about this one? What would that equal?
Zero.
And why is that?
Because it doesn't have an x. It's a constant.
It's a constant because it's a number. It doesn't have any variables. So next we'll be learning the constant multiple rule. And this states that the derivative of a constant times a function of x equals the constant times the derivative of that function. For example, if y equals 2 times the square root of x, you need to find the derivative of the square root of x. So, and you don't need to worry about the 2 because it's constant. So to do this, you have to change the square root of x into an exponent. And that will be x to the 1/2. Then you find the derivative of the x to the 1/2, like you do for the last one we did. And this will be 1/2 of x to the negative 1/2, because you're still taking 1 from 1/2. So 1/2 minus 1 equals negative 1/2. Then you add the 2 back in here, into there. You multiply the 2 back into there. And so that will give you the derivative of y will equal 1. And then when x is a negative exponent, that means it's being divided. So you change this back into the square root because of the 1/2. And then the negative makes it dividing instead of multiplying. So it would give you 1 over x, the square root of x. So now let's do another one, which will be 2 over x, just x. So then you must find the derivative of the x. Once again, the 2 is constant, so you don't need to worry about that until the end. So once again, you have to change the x into an exponent. So the square divided by x is to an exponent, it would be x to the negative 1. So then you find the derivative of that, which will be negative 1x to the negative 2 power, because you're subtracting 1 from a negative 1, which makes it negative 2. Then you multiply the 2 back into it, because it was constant. So then that would give you the negative 2x to the negative 2. And since this is negative to the x, the exponent is negative to the x, you change the x back into dividing by. So it would be negative 2 over x squared. Alright, so let's give some examples. What is find the derivative of y for that?
X. 1. Negative 3 over x squared.
That's correct. So once again, you take the x, you change it into an exponent, negative 1, and then you do derivative, which would be negative x to the negative 2. You multiply the 3 back in, be negative 3x to the negative 2. and because it's negative, the x becomes divided by, so it'll be negative 3 over x squared. Alright, what about
I got 3 over 2 over the square root of x.
That's right.
Okay.
So, again, since the constant, you don't need to worry about that to the end. So, change the square root of x into an exponent, and you have x to 1/2. Then you find the derivative of that, which would be 1 over 2x, negative 1 over, to negative 1/2. So then you multiply the 3 back in, and it makes it 3 over 2x to negative 1/2. And then, because of the negative, it becomes a dividing, and because of the 1/2, it goes back into a square root. So it becomes 3/2 over the square root of x. So now we'll be talking about the sum and difference rule. The sum and difference rule is finding the derivative of two functions that are being added or subtracted to each other. So this is what it looks like. So some examples would be y equals x cubed minus 4x plus 5. So each of these is a function. So now you have to find the derivative of each function. So that would be that x cubed is 3x squared minus the 4x just becomes 4, and then the 5 becomes a 0, so you don't need to put that in. Another example is 2x squared plus 5x squared, 2x cubed plus 5x squared minus 20. So the derivative of that would be 6x squared plus 10x. And then the 20 becomes 0, so it just be 0, so you don't need to put that in. Or I could also, if this had an x at the end, it would just become negative 20. So now we're going to do write some examples and you give me the answer. Right.
Okay.
Okay, so what did you get for the first one?
I got y prime equals 9x squared plus 8x minus 9.
That's right.
Basically,
the next one.
got y prime equals 16x cubed minus 9x. I mean 6x, sorry. I read that wrong.
Okay, that's correct too. Alright. Okay, now we're going to learn about the product rule. And the product rule is where you're finding the derivative of two functions that are being multiplied to each other. And so what it looks like is this. X times g of x equals to f of x times the derivative of g of x plus g of x times the derivative of f of x. So an example would be y equals 2x times 3x. So you would first find the derivative of the gx, which is the 3x. So it would be, and you leave the 2x alone, so it would be the 2x times 3, which is the derivative of 3x, plus 3x, because you're leaving that alone, and the derivative of 2x is 2. And then you could simplify it to 6x plus 6x, which equals 12x. another one would be 2x squared. So then 2x squared times y times 4x. So y prime is the 2x squared alone. And then you find the derivative of 4x, and that becomes 4. And then you leave the 4x, and you find the derivative of 2x squared, which becomes 4x. And then you could sum it down to 8x squared plus 16x squared, and that would make it 24x squared. Alright, so now let's work some out. So y equals 3x squared times 6x, and y equals 4x 3 times 2x squared.
Okay, for the first one, I got y prime equals 54x squared.
Tell me how you worked it out.
I did y prime equals 3x squared times 6 plus 6x times 6x.
Alright.
And then I multiplied 3x squared and 6, and I got 18x squared. And I multiplied 6x and 6x and got 30x squared. And I put the plus sign.
Wait, what?
I did 6x and 6x and got 30x squared. 36x squared.
36x squared?
And then I added this together and got 54x squared.
And what about next one?
I got 40x to the 4th. I did 4x cubed times 4x plus 2x squared times 12x squared. And then I got 16x to the fourth
Mm-hmm.
plus 24x to the fourth. And then I added that together and got 40x to the fourth.
Alright, that's correct. Alright, now that we've gone over all 5 derivative rules, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, then. Here's your quiz.